Hey guys, thanks for coming back to the shop. We're getting this Odyssey ready to ride. We're going over some last minute things. We've got some parts ordered. I don't know if they're gonna make it or not, but one way or the other, I think we can make something happen. So while we're waiting on parts, we're not gonna waste any time. We're not gonna sit around. What we're gonna do is we are gonna kind of sit around a little bit. We're gonna work on that seat. And so here's what I found so far. So what I've done, I'm using my little lift table if you ever did sheetrock work, it's like a dead man. That's what I'm using it for right now. This is the mock-up stage. I'm not gonna be able to drop the seat as low as I had hoped. This exhaust hangs so far forward in the back. You see, I'm gonna put a heat shield between the seat and the header. But as you can see, we've only got about an inch right there, which is more than the factory seat. I mean, it was almost touching then. It wasn't, but it was extremely close. So what we're gonna do is, this is pretty much the final seat placement right in this general area. I've taken a piece of plate and I've laid it down here under the bottom frame rail of the Odyssey. I've got my table lifting up and it's holding it into position for me. And the reason I did that is so I could scribe a line or draw a line around it. This is going to be our cut line, and what we're going to do is we're going to bolt it from the bottom. Instead of getting fancy, we're going to keep it simple. And that does gain us the height of the frame rail. So now we're going to have this sheet. This is actually a piece of a plate. This is a piece of steel here. This is not the top of the lift table. I know it looks the same, but it is different. We'll clean up this back edge. This is an old piece of scrap metal I had laying around the house. You can see somebody used a torch at one time and cut it. We'll straighten that up, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come off of here, either weld or bolt. I haven't decided yet. I'm not sure how I want it to be removable. So when I modify things from the original factory way of doing stuff, and then we are certainly doing that here, I don't like to weld. I don't like to cut the original vehicle at all, really. What I like to do is kind of bolt on my changes in the event that, let's say maybe I run across a replacement seat, an actual Odyssey seat, and I want to put it in here, or maybe the next owner has an original Odyssey seat and they want to put it in here. That's not likely, but it could happen. I want what I build to be able to unbolt, be discarded, take the original part and put back in the Odyssey. And so that's how I move forward on projects like this. I don't want to destroy the integrity or the design much from the way it came from the factory. That's just not. A lot of guys would just grab some plate and they'd weld it on there and they'd be done in 5 minutes, and that's fine. It's your buggy, you do what you want. I would prefer myself, and how I'm going to move forward is this will be bolted on from the bottom. It will be removable. If someone ever wants to come in with the original Odyssey seat, they can unbolt what I do and they can bolt what they have in. And so for that being said, I am not going to cut off these tabs here. These are actually stiffeners. They reinforce the frame. If you look over there, they act as a gusset. And so that's another reason not to cut them off. Yes, we could cut them off here. We could follow this line and cut that off, and nobody would really care at this point. But if the next owner came in and had a seat and they wanted to bolt it in, then that would pretty much be, you know, hard for them to do that. They'd have to recreate that. So the way I move forward is we're going to put at least 2, if not 3 bolts down each side. We're going to suspend this plate from the bottom of the frame, and we're going to build our seat mount on it, and then we're going to key off of it with our heat shield. And I'd really like the heat shield to come up and come between the head and the exhaust. The exhaust is going to be the hottest area and the closest area, but radiant heat is something you need to be concerned about as well. Even the original Odyssey seat had a metal backing on it, and that was for twofold. One, it gave it strength, and 2, it reflected the heat and kept the heat off of the rider for as long as you could. And we're going to emulate that. We've got a plastic seat that does not need to get that hot. We're going to try to emulate the same characteristics of what Honda did back in 83 or 84, whatever year buggy this is. It's running and driving now. We've tested it on stands. All we really lack is some controls, and I could rig something up. I mean, we could use a brake lever off of a three-wheeler, and we could use a throttle, thumb throttle off of a three-wheeler, and we could, you know, put it together like that. And yeah, we could scoot around the yard and go, you know, yay, we did it. But we just have to turn around and redesign everything once those parts came in. So I would rather spend my time doing something else, maybe do it a little nicer, than to waste time rigging something that's going to be temporary. For testing purposes, you know, and for mock-up, and there's a time and place for that. But for me to just scoot around the yard and call it a win, I don't think that's the time or the place. I think that the time is better spent building the seat, being safe about it, having a seat that you can stand back and be proud of and go, that ain't going nowhere. And so that's what we're going to work on. And then after that, we're going to work on our pulse pump and see if we can get that working. And if we can get those two things working, I think we've got cables already. I think once we get those done, those are our two big issues this week. If we can get that done, then we will be waiting on parts. And depending on when those parts get here, I'm told they should be here Thursday. Today is Monday. So we've got 3 days to get ready for those parts. And that's my goal this week, is to get ready for those parts. And if you wonder why I'm stationary, I'm actually hiding something from y'all. I'm sorry to be so mean. But there's something on the other side of the camera that you're not ready for yet. And I'm not ready for you to see either. So we're going to try to keep that on the other side of the camera. But got some good stuff coming, so I'm excited about that. But I really do want to run this buggy. I want to put some miles on it and enjoy it, because it's something that when I was a kid, there was another kid down the road that had a yellow one, and so now we've learned that was probably a 79 or through, I think, 83. I think they were yellow. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. We know it was the first generation of it was a yellow Odyssey, and it sat literally in his side yard my entire life. I never saw it crank up. I never saw it drive anywhere. It just sat there. I don't remember the backstory on it. I don't know if it ever ran. Maybe it was a project that boy's father brought home and then didn't fix. Whatever the reason, I never saw it move. But I had a regular yard cart, you know, one wheel peel in the back, 3.5 Briggs, flathead motor, one-seater go-kart. And when I saw that Odyssey, I knew right then and there that they were nicer, cooler go-karts than what I had. And so I've always kind of put this in the same category as a go-kart. And it's a lot bigger, of course, than a go-kart, but it has a whole lot more power too. I always wondered what that bike was like, or what that Odyssey was like. How fast was it? What did it sound like? Things like that. And as kids, we would play on it, and we would sit in it, and we'd pretend, and, you know, we'd pull the cord, but, you know, it never would light off, and it just sat there. And I feel bad now. I wish I could kind of go back and you know, help my younger self out and go, hey, look, there's the problem, you know, but that's not the way it works. And so I am really just reliving childhood fantasies, one build at a time. I mean, that's what all this comes down to. People say, why do you do it? This is it. This is it. I didn't have a three-wheeler growing up. I didn't have an Odyssey growing up. Those were things that were unattainable for me. And I saw other kids have them, and I, you know, when you see somebody have something, you got to keep in mind that had to be, that Odyssey couldn't have been that old. It could have been 5 years old. Here I am, I bring one back that's 35 years old from you know, death, basically. And that one was 5 years old, and it couldn't get fixed. And that's why I make this channel. So those projects get done. So those bikes get fixed. And so kids today have the option and the opportunity to enjoy them. That's why I do it. But in my mind, it was perfect. All right, guys, let me tell you everything I know about heat shields. Okay, that about covers it. I hope y'all are paying attention. I think the most important thing when it comes to a heat shield is the air gap before and after the heat shield. The more air you can get to run across any type of metal, it's going to absorb or, you know, withdraw the most heat out of it. That's why you have fins on anything that gets hot, like an amplifier or the head of an engine or something like that. That's why those fins are there. It creates more surface area for the wind to blow across, and that surface area creates more withdrawal of heat from that item. So keeping that in mind, this plate that we're going to mount, I'm going to weld it here to the bottom, and that should give us plenty of strength there. It's not going to support anything. And I know it's overkill. This is what I got laying around the shop. It's free, and so we're going to use it. So that's why I'm using it. Yes, it's galvanized. If you're careful with galvanized and grind all the galvanization off of it, it's just like any other steel. If you're going to be welding it, one of the benefits of galvanized metal is you don't have to paint it right away because it's already protected. So what I want to do here is I want to maintain a good air gap between the front of our heat shield and the back of the seat. So I don't want it all the way up to the seat. And that, again, I don't want it all the way back touching the engine either, because this engine moves around. It's on rubber isolators. And so you want a good air gap before and after it. So when you're moving, the wind comes through, the air comes through and cools this panel off. It's going to get hot, but it's only going to get hot by radiant heat, and that's instead of direct contact heat. And so that radiant heat is going to take longer to move from the engine into this metal because of the air gap. Once this gets up to temperature, you've got another air gap before you get to the back of the seat. It's not going to be much, but we do want to maintain some of that. The other benefit of this particular piece of metal being as thick as it is, it's going to take longer to heat up than a thin piece of metal. It's going to transfer that heat a lot slower than a thin piece of metal. So that should buy us some more time for more wind to come past it to try to maintain that heat-cool relationship. Remember, the seat that we took out of this thing was basically a 4-inch thick piece of insulation to protect you from sitting right up against that exhaust. So it's more than a seat that was actually removed from here. It was actually an insulator between you and the hot engine. Again, this is only bolted from the bottom. If somebody shows up with an original Odyssey seat and the next owner of this buggy wants to put an Odyssey seat back in it, the brackets are still here. We haven't cut anything. We haven't altered anything. And that's a big deal for me. When I modify or alter an original piece of equipment, I try to do it in a way that it can always be restored back. I'm not going to own this equipment for the rest of my life. Someone else is going to come behind me, and I want to give them that option. They can either leave it like I built it, or they can revert back to the original way it was done. well, there's a little chain stitch there. I didn't see any point in welding it all the way solid. Remember, it's not structural. Nobody's going to be sitting on it or leaning against it. It's strictly there to create a barrier for that radiant heat that's going to come off that engine. This also, you know, allows water, if it gets in there, it can just roll right out. It's not going to pool. But this is our seat. We're going to mark our holes and go ahead and drill for that and get that done tonight. I'm really pleased with that. I think that looks good. I didn't want the heat shield to be real obvious. You know, it's down there, it's hidden behind the seat. It's going to block us from the muffler. You know, not 100%, not all the way up into here, but there again, you've got air that comes around this seat and goes in here and needs to cool all of that. It's an air-cooled engine. We can't put it in a box, but I think it looks good. I think once it's painted, it'll blend right into the seat, and really, I like it. I like it a lot. Now, if it starts to vibrate, it shouldn't as thick as it is, but if it does, we can always tie in here and make a bracket or a gusset, if you will, and tie into the cage. But that's not going anywhere, y'all. That's going to work. So we can cut that with some Pour 15, or you can sand it down and rattle can it. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways to do it, but that's solid. All right, guys. So what we got here is we got our seat turned upside down. I went to the store today and I picked up some hardware to hold it in and some washers, you know, all that good stuff. We're going to use that to make a template, so we can transfer the pattern or the layout of the bolts to the floor. Just going to use a piece of cardboard here. It doesn't have to be too perfect, but we do want to try to do a good job, you know. There's a lot of different ways to do this. This way works pretty good. Alright, so now we have our indentations everywhere there's a bolt. Okay, there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this pattern, we're going to get a drill. We'll drill through the cardboard into our base. We'll center it up. We'll need to find center, of course. With our arrangement here, I'm going to get all that laid out, and then we'll get ready to punch some holes. All right, so what I've done is I've taken my cardboard template and I've bolted it with the bolts to the bottom of the seat. And the reason I've done that is because I can't see underneath the seat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make reference marks on our cardboard against the bottom of our new pan that we put in. And then that way, when I unbolt it from the seat, I can put the cardboard back in the same spot. That will mark the places that I need to drill. The 6 holes, the 6 bolts that hold this on, I'll show you in just a minute. The form that they use on this is completely out of whack. There's 7 3/4 between 2 of them. There's 7 1/2 between 2 of them, and there's 7 1/8 between 2 of them. They're crooked. You're gonna see my holes and you're gonna laugh and you're gonna go, that guy can't drill a hole. Well, it's not my strong suit, but I can do better than this. I know somebody's gonna call me out and they're gonna go, well, the seat that came out of here was adjustable. And it was, but I'm gonna only be able to use the very far back adjustment. So if any of y'all are doing a seat conversion or needing a seat, because I know that when these buggies sit outside, the seats just absorb water and they rot out. This seat was $39 off of Jegs. They only had 3 in stock, and it took me 3 weeks to get it. So this is what I was talking about, guys. The mounts that they've embedded in the bottom of the seat. Now we want to keep this cardboard orientation correct. If we flip this upside down, it's not gonna work. So you remember which way's up, which way's down, which way's front, which way's back. Sits like that. Here's our reference marks you see I put on here, all 4 corners. And then I have reference marks that coordinate with those on the pan. But if I can show you this, I don't know if the camera's gonna capture it or not. You see how out of whack them holes are? Oops. Watch this bolt. It's almost going in at 45 degrees. Now I'm sure when you tighten these up, the plastic will move and flex and stretch. But using these as a guide, look how far off they are. I don't know if y'all can see or not, but these inside ones, not only are they tipped in, but the corner ones are tipped in also, all the way around. So we're gonna do the best we can on it. A little bit to the left, 5 1/4. So we're 1/16 of an inch off, which really isn't bad. I don't think you'd ever notice 1/16 of an inch. We're probably gonna have to waller the holes 1/16 of an inch anyway, just to make it fit. And if any of you guys are out there and don't know, and I didn't know for a while, you can get a tape measure with all the little numbers on it. So if you're not good at math, they got little cheaters out now. Now I normally don't get carried away and center punch all of them. Things are gonna move. When you're working with a pattern like this, do 1 or 2, get those established, go ahead and put bolts in them to secure your pattern, and then move down, okay? Because I can tell you, more than likely, if you punched all 4 of those, by the time you drilled the last one, it's not gonna line up. It's just Murphy's Law. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to enlarge those 2 center ones for sure. And I was thinking about it, you know, this might be one of those situations where a piece of rubber mat would be nice. You could actually put the rubber mat between the seat and the seat pan that we've created. I know we talked about, or I talked about, putting some suspension or some springs on here, but I just didn't have the room. I really had thought, and I'd really, you know, the center of this seat would clear these frame rails, but the sides won't. And I didn't know that. And I really needed, there was no point in having the seat bottom out, and I can't afford to raise the seat anymore to create suspension. So if the seat won't pass through the frame rails, I really couldn't do the suspension idea that I wanted to. So sorry about that. I know some of y'all were probably wanting to see how that was gonna turn out. I wanted to see how that was gonna turn out. But I think this is a good compromise. What we'll do is we'll adjust the air pressure in the back of the tires, and we're gonna ride it like it is. I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be fun. And that's what it's all about. It's all about having fun. But I think a piece of floor mat would probably work good, something that's got some dense rubber on it, so it doesn't transfer all the way to you. And so, you know, there's little modifications you can do like that. You can do like a Dynamat. They make an insulated Dynamat that is an insulator. You could certainly put that on this back panel that we created. Another layer of keeping heat off of you. For that matter, you could coat the whole thing on the inside. All right, guys, it's been a couple days. The weather has been terrible. We got like 6 inches of rain over the last day and a half. So the yard's a mess, but we're gonna make it worse. So, cause you know, that's what we do. I'll tell you a story. I was about 12, 13, and I had a go-kart, and I had a little friend stay over. We had a sleepover, you know how those go. And we decided to get up early, and we were gonna ride the go-kart in the yard. And at that age, when it rains all night, it just doesn't matter. Just, you know, it's another day. And we were told that if we were to go outside, we had to wear our raincoats. That was the only rule given that Saturday. If you go outside, wear your raincoat. I don't want you to get sick. Okay. So me and my little friend, we put on our raincoats and we got on our go-kart and we rode and we rode and we rode and we rode. And by the time my mother got home, we had created the Indy 400 around our house. We literally had a track built in one day on a go-kart. We were two-time in that go-kart. One would ride on the back standing up, one would ride sitting down. Don't advise that unless you bounce. And back then I could bounce. Now when I fall down, I just lay there a little bit, kind of take inventory and then get up. I think that's just getting old kind of thing. But anyways, I followed the rule. I was a good kid. I had my raincoat on. No one said we couldn't build a track. So you might want to be a little more specific when you leave your 12 or 13-year-old home alone. That was the 80s. It was a different era. I don't know if you can do that these days or not. But anyways, back to what we're dealing with today. Honda Odyssey, drug it out of a backyard. It's here. Now, I ran out of time on a few things. We got some parts ordered that hadn't showed up. But I gotta tell you, just real quick, I really met a lot of people in the Odyssey community. I didn't realize how many of y'all there were. These things are a blast. Carl, thank you, I appreciate it. He helped me out, he got me some parts. We ended up needing to get the rods. I had to replace the 2 rods that run through here on the steering. Got 2 of those, got new levers, went ahead and got a new kill switch. Be sure you have that, that's your safety. We don't have any lights hooked up. I showed you the part number earlier for this switch. It works fine. It's the exact same switch. It's on in the center position, off left, off right. It's the same switch. The difference is the wiring is about a foot too short. So if you don't mind splicing in the wiring, it will save you $25 from what you'll find online. Look that part number up. Partzilla carries it. That's who I'd recommend go get it. For $25, I extended the wire. We put that $25 somewhere else. We ended up needing new cables, throttle, and brake. That's it up here. I've got to get some longer screws. I know somebody's going to point me out on that. I've got them, but they're too long, and I don't want to break them off in there. So I'm going to get some shorter screws for that. Otherwise, the front end's there. These are the original tires. I told you we do have replacements. I'm trying to get this video out to y'all. It's Sunday, 2 o'clock now. I'm really trying to beat a 6 o'clock deadline. We do have fenders for the rear. They're not on. These are 200X hubs. 200X wheels, okay, and then that is a pretty good, that's a 22-inch tall tire, which is the right size for this. We got our new filter in here. We went with an uni. I like unis. Carburetor, of course, we have to give a great shout out and thank you to Curtie at 223 Cycles. The fuel pump, this is where I lost some time here. This pump is not working adequate enough to tote that carburetor. So after 2 days and 2 pull cords later, because I just wore the first one out and straightened this pump out, I've tried a second pump. It didn't work either, one for a lawnmower. I don't know, we'll see. I would prefer to use this system because this is how it came. This tank is in good shape. There's fuel in it now, it's not leaking. And I hate that I can't use it, but to get this video out, we kind of had to shoot, you know, from the hip here and make this happen. And so this is what we come up, or this is what I come up with. It's just a gravity fed system to the tank. Our temporary plug, our hole, did not last. I just took this for a rip before showing you here. We've already blew through the tin can. That kind of tells you how much pressure you have here. Heat shield is doing its job. It did get warm. I rode it for about 5 minutes and it did get warm, but the driver did not. And that's what's important. Our seat's really good. I'm a big guy. I'm 230 if I'm lying, maybe a little more if I'm not. 6 foot, depending on the convenience store I walk in or out of. I fit in here pretty well. You'll see in the video. We're going to take a couple of hot laps and show you how this thing performs. We have about 5% brakes. I've got it adjusted as far as it can go. We need pads. I do not have any pads. So I don't want to adjust it anymore because then it's just dragging. It's the pads that are shot. So that's it. That's it. We're running. We're operating. Well, as you can see by the amount of mud on me, that's a lot of fun. So I had to come back and get my camera, and I think that's a pretty good payoff. It took us about 3 weeks, I think, all total. You know, waiting on parts, diagnosing what parts you need. That's all part of it. It's a blast. Check it out. Posi rear axle, you know, the thing you want on your go-kart. Fenders would have been nice. I should have put them on. I wouldn't be near as muddy. The seat is great. It's very comfortable. It was easy to put in. Controls work. Turn it off like it's supposed to. We will need to get a header. We will need to get some brakes. That should quiet it down a little bit. It's a ball. But overall, so total investment, where are we at? I don't know that I'm gonna have time to put all that on the screen, but I'll tell you, we paid $300 for the buggy. These are the same tires that are on it, on the front. Those are some hand-me-downs we had off of another project. They are new, but they've sat on that project for a year. So let's say $100 in the tires. We had the wheels. Those tires would have mounted on the original wheels. That's why I didn't assess a value to them. We got the $26 on the switch, which is half the cost of what they want for the actual Odyssey one. The machine screws we picked up, let's say $100 in miscellaneous. Zip tie, spark plug, machine screws for that. $30 on an air filter, which you know, they're the best in the business. This bike will probably never have another air filter. Uni air filter. Went to my hardware store, got some nylon rope. So another couple of bucks there. The carburetor, of course, always comes from 223 Cycles. Thank you, Curtie. This is the original drive belt. It's got a lot of slop in it. It's actually rubbing the axle. So, sorry, it's actually rubbing the axle a little bit. So its days are numbered, but we have a new belt. That was $35. We'll put that on. We're gonna need some brake shoes. Or brake pads. That's gonna be another $25. But the clutch, I mean, it hooks. You saw me leave the shop. That's pretty much full throttle. I mean, it launches really, really good. For a worn belt, I'm looking forward to what the new belt would do. We'll get us a machine, one of those machine aluminum gas tanks. We'll set it up here. So all total, if you were to have bought this from the backyard, you would probably have about $600 in it. I paid $50. That included the shipping for the seat. The sheet metal, or the metal that we had for that, it's definitely thicker than sheet metal. For our heat shield, which actually doubles as our floor pan, had that laying around the house. $600 and you're out riding. I mean, that's what it's about. That's what you can do with some basic hand tools in a good general understanding of mechanics. Is it perfect? No, it's not. It's never going to be perfect. That's what some people don't understand. It's never going to be perfect. You can make it perfect if you want to spend a bunch of money, but that's not what I do. I spend the money where it has to be spent. I don't worry about the pretty, and I'm all about the fun. I enjoy building them. I enjoy fixing them. I enjoy finding them. I enjoy all of this. This is why I do it. I actually probably enjoy the riding the least. And I know some of y'all are going to go, oh, you know, but hey, somebody's got to be in the pits. Somebody's got to know how to fix it. Somebody's got to know where the tools are and what tools you need. And that's where I come in. That's what I do. I enjoy riding them, but it's not my favorite part. They put a smile on my face every time I do it, though. There's something about taking something that's been discarded and thrown away and considered trash by many, and bringing it back to life like this and enjoying it. And that's really what this channel is about. And so I appreciate every one of you for watching and following along. I've got to go edit this video and get it up to y'all hopefully this evening. I've set a goal, and that goal is 10,000 subscribers. We're well on our way. We're 4,200, I think, this morning, last I checked. And that's just over a year. So that should be an attainable goal, and it's up to y'all. It is. It's up to y'all sharing and liking and telling people about the channel and spreading the word. And if you do that, then my part is to make sure that the content's worthy of your time. And I hope that we're doing that. I hope that the content is fun and educational, and you learn something. And I hope that really it inspires you to get out and do whatever it is you enjoy doing. If you enjoy small engines, then great. If you enjoy doing something else, do it. Because one of these days you're not going to be able to. And until that day comes, for me, I'm going to do it. So with that said, thank you as always. Y'all take care, like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.